Stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. The setting sun painted streaks of orange and purple across the sky as Michael Benson's black Mercedes pulled into the driveway of his two-story colonial home. His fingers drummed against the leather steering wheel, a rare smile playing across his usually stern features. The Riverside business trip had ended sooner than expected, a stroke of luck that would let him surprise his family for dinner. Through the windshield, he studied the house he'd worked so hard to afford. Warm light spilled from the living room windows, casting long shadows across the perfectly manicured lawn. The landscape lighting he'd installed last summer clicked on automatically, illuminating the stone pathway to the front door. Ava's white BMW sat in its usual spot, alongside Chloe's red convertible, the graduation gift that had cost him 3 months of overtime, but had been worth it to see his daughter's face light up. "Home sweet home," he murmured, killing the engine. The familiar weight of his briefcase felt lighter tonight, buoyed by thoughts of sharing good news about the Riverside deal. He'd secured the largest contract of his career, something that would mean even more financial security for his family. As he approached the front door, the sound of unfamiliar voices mixed with laughter drifted through the evening air. Michael slowed his steps, years of project management experience having taught him to notice when something felt off. The voices were male, young, definitely not the usual book club members or neighborhood friends. He inserted his key with surgical precision, turning it slowly to minimize noise. The foyer greeted him with darkness, but light spilled from the living room along with more distinct sounds, now hushed whispers, giggling, and what sounded unmistakably like kissing. Michael's heart began to race, though his exterior remained calm. He set his briefcase down silently, years of discipline keeping his movements controlled despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. The sounds grew clearer as he approached the living room. A man's low murmur, Ava's distinctive laugh, and more disturbing noises he refused to process. The scene that greeted him burned itself into his memory with brutal clarity. Ava, his wife of 18 years, lay sprawled across their $5,000 Italian leather sofa. Her cream silk blouse, another expensive gift he bought her, was half unbuttoned, revealing the lace beneath. A young man he'd never seen before had his hands where Michael's hands should be, his lips marking territory that wasn't his to claim. But that betrayal, shocking as it was, paled in comparison to what he saw on the love seat. Their daughter Chloe, barely 18 and still wearing the tennis outfit he bought her for Lakeside Country Club lessons, straddled another stranger. Her hands were tangled in his hair as they kissed with an intensity that spoke of practice. This clearly wasn't their first encounter. The briefcase slipped from Michael's fingers, hitting the floor with a thud that seemed to echo through the suddenly silent room. Time stretched like taffy, each second burning itself into his consciousness with photographic precision. He noticed details he didn't want to see: the empty wine glasses on the coffee table, the men's expensive workout clothes, the casual intimacy that spoke of familiarity. None of them jumped apart in shock or shame. Instead, Ava turned her head lazily, her perfectly maintained honey blonde hair cascading over the sofa arm. Her lipstick was smeared, but her eyes, those eyes he'd fallen in love with 2 decades ago, held nothing but cool amusement. "You're always ruining our perfect evenings, Michael," she purred, making no move to disentangle herself from her companion. The words hit him like physical blows, each syllable dripping with contempt. The man beneath her, young, muscular, wearing what looked like designer workout gear, had the audacity to smirk. "So this must be the workaholic husband you mentioned." His hand stayed possessively on Ava's waist, marking his territory. "Dad." Chloe's voice cut through the air, heavy with annoyance rather than shame. She shifted in her companion's lap, rolling her eyes. "You're supposed to be in Riverside until tomorrow. Why are you always checking up on us?" Michael's hands clenched into fists, his knuckles white with strain. The rage building inside him was unlike anything he'd experienced in his 40 years of life. Cold, calculating, and absolute. It wasn't the hot anger that made men do stupid things. This was different. This was Arctic ice that froze everything except his ability to think. Who are they? His voice emerged steady, controlled, despite the fury coursing through his veins. Years of handling difficult clients and construction crises served him well now, keeping his exterior professional, even as his world imploded. Eva sat up with deliberate slowness, each movement a choreographed display of indifference. She adjusted her blouse without buttoning it, letting her companion's hands linger on her skin. "This is Owen." She gestured to the man behind her, her diamond wedding ring catching the light, the ring he'd upgraded just last year for their anniversary. "And that's Logan." She waved toward Chloe's partner, who looked barely older than their daughter. "They're personal trainers at the Lakeside Country Club." Her red lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. "They know how to make a woman feel appreciated. Unlike some people we know," Chloe added with a sneer that was pure Ava, running her fingers through Logan's hair. The gesture was so adult, so practiced, that it made Michael's stomach turn. When had his little girl turned into this stranger? "They've been helping us stay fit," Ava continued, her voice dripping with innuendo. "Something you'd know nothing about, always buried in your work papers and project plans." Owen's hand slid around Ava's waist again, his fingers playing possessively across her stomach. "Your wife's been telling us all about you, Mr. Benson." The dedicated businessman, always at the office, never time for personal attention. Michael stepped fully into the room, his presence filling the space with dangerous energy. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. "How long?" he demanded, his gaze locked on Ava. "How long have you been bringing them here?" "Into my house." "Your house?" Ava laughed, the sound like breaking glass. She stood smoothly, letting Owen's hands trail along her body as she rose. "Is that what you think? That because you pay the mortgage, this is your house?" She gestured around the expertly decorated room. "I made this home, Michael. I created this life, while you were busy with your precious projects and endless meetings." "You created this?" His voice dropped lower, colder. "Teaching our daughter to be just as faithless as you. That's what you're proud of." Chloe jumped up, her face flushing with anger. "Don't you dare talk to Mom like that. She deserves to be happy. When was the last time you even asked her how she felt? When was the last time you were here for dinner, instead of calling to say you'd be late? Listen to your daughter, Michael." Ava's voice held a triumphant note. "Even she sees it. You're never here. You're never present. You think providing a nice house and expensive cars makes you a good husband, a good father, while you were busy building your perfect life." Owen added, standing to wrap his arms around Ava from behind. "Your wife and daughter were living theirs, making real connections, finding real passion." Michael's gaze snapped to the younger man, and something in his expression made Owen's smirk falter. "You don't speak." Michael's voice could have frozen hell. "This isn't about you. You're just a symptom of their rot, a parasite feeding off what I've built." "Don't talk to him like that," Ava hissed, but Michael could see the first crack in her composed facade. She'd expected him to break down, to beg, to try to reason with her. This cold fury was something new, something she hadn't planned for. "I'll talk to your boy toy however I want in my house," Michael replied, each word precisely chosen. "The house I paid for with 60-hour work weeks, just like I paid for the tennis lessons where you met them, the Lakeside Country Club membership you used to seduce them, the cars, the clothes, the lifestyle you used to pursue this entertainment." Logan stood up, trying to look tough despite being several inches shorter than Michael. "Maybe we should." "Shut up," Michael cut him off without even looking his way. "You and your friend are leaving. Now, before I decide to make this more complicated. They don't have to go anywhere." Chloe protested, grabbing Logan's arm. The diamond tennis bracelet Michael had given her for her 18th birthday glinted at her wrist. This is our house too. You can't just order people around like one of your construction workers. Michael turned to his daughter, really looking at her. She was Ava in miniature now. The same entitled attitude, the same calculating look behind any tears, the same complete disregard for morality or respect. All his efforts to give her a better life than he had growing up had created. This. No, Chloe, this is my house. Every brick, every tile, every piece of furniture bought with my money, maintained with my work. And I'm done watching you both destroy everything I've built. You can't handle the truth, Michael. Ava laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it now. Something in his demeanor was making her uncomfortable. You've always been the boring one, the predictable one, the safe choice. She ran her hand down Owen's chest, but the gesture seemed forced now, theatrical. These men know how to make life exciting. They understand what a woman needs. Exciting. Michael's voice could have cut diamond. You want excitement, Ava. Then you're about to get your wish. He turned to Owen and Logan, his expression making both men take an involuntary step back. You have 30 seconds to get out of my house before I call the police. And trust me, after 15 years of handling construction permits in this town, I have enough friends on the force to make sure you both lose those cushy lakeside country club jobs. Maybe even face some interesting questions about your other clients. The two men exchanged glances, their bravado evaporating in the face of Michael's cold fury. They might have been younger and stronger, but something in Michael's eyes told them he was the most dangerous person in the room. This is ridiculous, Owen muttered, but he was already heading for the door. Logan followed, throwing an apologetic look at Chloe that she answered with a sob. Mom. Chloe protested as her boy toy retreated. Do something. You can't let him do this. But Ava was watching Michael with growing uncertainty. In 18 years of marriage, she'd never seen him like this. She'd grown used to manipulating his predictable patterns, his workaholic nature, his desire to keep the peace. This was something new, something that made her manicured fingers tremble slightly as she clutched her partially buttoned blouse. You've both made a terrible mistake, Michael said quietly as the front door closed behind Owen and Logan. You thought you could do this because I'm reasonable, because I'm controlled, because I always plan things out. He smiled, and both women took an involuntary step back. Well, you're right about one thing. I do always have a plan. Michael turned and walked out of the living room, his footsteps measured and deliberate. Each step up the stairs echoed through the suddenly silent house, punctuated only by Ava's demands to come back and Chloe's angry sobs. He entered their bedroom, the master suite he'd renovated just last year to Ava's exact specifications, and pulled out a leather suitcase from the walk-in closet. His movements were methodical as he packed, each item carefully selected. Suits for work, casual clothes, toiletries. His mind was already racing ahead, plotting out the next several moves in this game he'd been thrust into. The sound of heels on hardwood announced Ava's arrival before she appeared in the doorway. Her blouse was fully buttoned now, but crooked. The perfect mask she usually wore was cracking, uncertainty bleeding through. What are you doing? Her voice wavered slightly. What does it look like? He continued packing, not bothering to look at her. Instead, he opened his bedside drawer and removed his passport, birth certificate, and other important documents. You can't just leave, she protested, stepping into the room. The expensive perfume he'd bought her for Christmas wafted through the air, now tainted with the memory of another man's hands on her. We need to talk about this. You're being unreasonable. Unreasonable. Michael finally turned to face her, his voice arctic. Was I being unreasonable when I worked overtime to buy you that BMW? When I paid for your spa memberships, your shopping trips, your jewelry? He gestured to the tennis bracelet at her wrist, a perfect match to Chloe's. Tell me, Ava, how many of your little adventures with Owen did that bracelet pay for? It's not about the money. She stepped closer, reaching for him. He caught her wrist before she could touch him, his grip firm but controlled. Don't. Don't try to manipulate me. Not anymore. He released her and turned back to his packing. You've shown me exactly who you are, Ava. You and Chloe both. Now I'm going to show you who I am. What's that supposed to mean? Real fear crept into her voice now. It means, he zipped the suitcase with finality, that you're about to learn the difference between a man who's patient and a man who's weak. He brushed past her, carrying his suitcase downstairs. Chloe was waiting at the bottom, tears streaming down her face, smearing her expensive makeup. Daddy, please. Mom's right. You're never here. You don't understand what it's like. I understand perfectly, Michael replied, not slowing down. I understand that I worked 60-hour weeks to give you both everything you wanted. I understand that instead of appreciating it, you both decided to throw it in my face. He reached the front door and turned to face them both. And I understand exactly what I'm going to do about it. You're overreacting. Ava called from the stairs. By tomorrow you'll calm down and... No, Ava. By tomorrow you'll begin to understand exactly what you've done. His smile was terrifying in its calmness. You wanted excitement, change, something unpredictable. Well, congratulations. You're about to get everything you asked for. The door closed behind him with a final click, leaving Ava and Chloe standing in the foyer, their perfect world already beginning to crumble around them. 20 minutes later, Michael sat in a suite at the Ellington Hotel, his laptop open before him. The room was expensive. He'd made sure to use the credit card Ava had access to for that last charge, letting her see exactly where he was. But she wouldn't be able to follow up on that information for long. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he accessed their joint accounts. First, he transferred the bulk of their liquid assets, nearly $400,000, into his personal account that Ava didn't know existed. Next, he pulled up their credit card accounts: Gemini Express, Vista, Mastercash. He systematically canceled every card in Ava's name, saving screenshots of recent charges at high-end hotels during times she claimed to be on spa retreats. His phone buzzed repeatedly, texts and calls from both Ava and Chloe. He ignored them all, focused on his task. Finally, he picked up his phone and dialed his lawyer's private number. Martin picked up on the third ring, sounding groggy. Michael, it's nearly midnight. I need you to clear your schedule tomorrow morning, Michael said without preamble. I'm filing for divorce. There was a pause, then the sound of rustling papers. Divorce? What happened? You and Ava always seemed. I caught her with another man in our house, Michael cut in, with Chloe and her own boy toy for company. Jesus Christ. Martin breathed, fully awake now. Both of them in the house. That's... Michael, I'm sorry. I'll call the office and clear my morning. First thing tomorrow. We'll... No, Michael interrupted. Not first thing. I have some other matters to handle first. I'll be there at 10. And Martin, I want everything. The house, the assets, all of it. I want her left with nothing but what she came into this marriage with, which, if I remember correctly, was a waitress uniform and a mountain of debt I paid off. It won't be easy, Martin cautioned. Even with adultery, the courts tend to. I don't care what it takes, Michael replied, his voice hard. I don't care what it costs. She's about to learn exactly what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. Can you handle this? Of course. I'll have the paperwork ready. But Michael, are you sure you don't want to wait? Think about it. I've thought about it for the last 3 hours. Every second I watch them scramble to explain. Every moment I listen to their excuses. I'm done thinking. Now it's time for action. He ended the call and turned back to his laptop. Social isolation would be the next step. Ava's carefully cultivated social status was her pride and joy, the thing she valued even above his money. By this time tomorrow, her phone would be blowing up with gossip about her affairs. He knew exactly which of her friends to approach first, the ones who'd been jealous of her all along, the ones who'd smiled to her face while gleefully spreading word of her fall from grace. A text message lit up his phone. "You're being childish, Michael. Come home, and we can discuss this like adults. Don't throw away 18 years over one mistake." He laughed coldly. One mistake? No, this had been going on for months, maybe years. All those late tennis lessons, all those spa weekends, all those shopping trips that somehow never produced any actual shopping bags. Michael leaned back in his chair, his mind racing with plans within plans. Ava had always accused him of being boring, predictable, safe. She'd used his stability against him, twisted his devotion into a weapon. Now she would learn why a man who knows how to plan, who knows how to wait, who knows how to control every detail, is the most dangerous enemy of all. Opening his email, he began composing messages to key people: his bank manager, his investment advisor, the Lakeside Country Club board of directors. Each message was carefully crafted, professional and controlled, but containing just enough detail to ensure Ava's comfortable world would begin collapsing around her with the morning sun. "You wanted excitement, Ava," he murmured to the empty room. "Well, tomorrow's going to be very exciting indeed." Michael sat in his office, fingers hovering over his keyboard as he logged into his banking portal. The memory of last night's discovery still burned in his mind. Ava with Owen, Chloe with Logan, their betrayal complete. His jaw tightened as he began executing the first phase of his plan. With methodical precision, he transferred their joint savings into his personal account. Next came the investment portfolios. Then the vacation fund Ava had been building for her girls' trips. One by one, he severed their financial lifelines. Finally, he picked up his phone and dialed his credit card company. "Yes, I need to cancel all additional cards on my account," he said, his voice steady. Immediately, the customer service representative's voice crackled through the speaker. "Of course, sir. May I ask the reason?" "Unauthorized usage," Michael replied coldly. "And I need it done now." 20 minutes later, he leaned back in his chair, a grim satisfaction settling over him. The first domino had fallen. He checked his watch. 10:43 a.m. It wouldn't take long for Ava to discover what he'd done. He was right. At 11:27 a.m., his office door burst open. Ava stormed in, her face flushed with rage, her designer purse clutched like a weapon. "You jerk," she shrieked, causing heads to turn in the open office space beyond. "My cards were declined at Weston & Co. What have you done?" Michael looked up calmly from his computer screen. "Were they?" he asked, his voice neutral. "Don't play dumb with me," Ava hissed, slamming her hands on his desk. "What have you done?" "I've taken back control," Michael replied, standing slowly. "Did you really think I'd keep funding your lifestyle after what I saw last night? You can't do this to me." Ava's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "I'll tell everyone about how you abandoned us, how you were never there." "Go ahead," Michael cut her off, stepping around his desk to face her directly. "Tell them how I caught you and our daughter with your personal trainers in our living room. I'm sure that'll play well at your next Lakeside Country Club luncheon." Ava's face paled slightly, but she recovered quickly. "You're nothing without me, Michael. I made you who you are. I gave you status, connections." "No," Michael's voice was sharp as steel. "I built everything we have through hard work, while you spent my money on your affairs. That ends today, Mom." Chloe's voice came from the doorway. She stood there, looking smaller than usual in her expensive workout clothes, her face streaked with tears. "The gym canceled my membership and my credit card isn't working." "Perfect timing," Michael said, turning to face his daughter. "You can both hear this together. From now on, you're cut off. Complete financial independence. Isn't that what you've always wanted, Ava? To be free of boring, controlling Michael. You're ruining everything," Chloe shouted, moving to stand beside her mother. "How am I supposed to live?" "Maybe get a job," Michael suggested, his tone cold. "Or ask Owen and Logan for help. They seemed quite invested in our family last night. Ava's eyes narrowed. This isn't over, Michael. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, I do, Michael replied, sitting back down at his desk. That's why I'm doing this. Security will escort you both out. I have work to do. As if on cue, 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Ava grabbed Chloe's arm, shooting Michael a venomous look. You'll regret this. She spat. No, Michael said, turning back to his computer. I already regret the years I wasted with you. After they left, Michael's colleague, Adam, stepped into his office. Everything okay? We heard shouting. Better than okay, Michael replied, pulling up his email. I'm taking out the trash. The next phase of Michael's plan required a different kind of precision. He'd spent years building relationships in their social circle, quietly earning trust while Ava basked in the spotlight. Now those connections would serve a new purpose. He started with Monica Hughes, the self-appointed queen bee of their social circle, and Ava's closest friend. Michael invited her to lunch at La Maison, Ava's favorite restaurant. Michael, this is unexpected, Monica said, sliding into the booth across from him. Is everything okay? Ava's been ignoring my calls. Michael stirred his coffee slowly. Actually, Monica, there's something you should know. As Ava's friend, you deserve the truth. Over the next hour, Michael carefully laid out the story, watching Monica's expressions shift from shock to disgust to calculation. He knew she had always envied Ava's position in their social hierarchy. The personal trainers. Monica gasped. Both of them. And in front of Chloe. Michael added, his voice heavy with carefully measured disappointment. Actually, Chloe was participating. Monica's hand flew to her mouth. No. I wish I were making this up, Michael said, looking down at his untouched lunch. I just thought you should know, before Ava tries to spin her own version. By the time they finished lunch, Monica was already typing furiously on her phone. Michael knew the news would spread like wildfire through their social circle. The effects were immediate and devastating. That weekend, Eva arrived at her regular tennis club, only to find her membership had been accidentally canceled. At church on Sunday, her usual pew was conspicuously empty around her. The invitations to charity galas and committee meetings dried up overnight. Chloe felt the social freeze as well. Her Instagram followers dropped by hundreds, then thousands. Her so-called friends stopped responding to texts. Even her favorite boutiques, where she'd always received special treatment, suddenly couldn't find her size in anything. A week later, Michael received a call from Ava's number. He let it go to voicemail. You think you're so clever. Her voice was thick with tears and rage. But you can't turn everyone against me. I built this life. These relationships. Michael texted back a single sentence. You built nothing. You just spent my money. The next day, he ran into Chloe at their favorite coffee shop. She looked different, her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a t-shirt, her makeup minimal. Dad. She called out, stepping in front of him. Please, can we talk? About what? Michael asked, not breaking his stride to the counter. About everything. Mom's falling apart. Our friends won't talk to us. Even Logan won't return my calls. Her voice cracked on the last word. Michael ordered his coffee before turning to face her. Isn't this what you wanted? Freedom from boring old dad and his rules. Go live your best life. Chloe, just don't do it on my dime. I made a mistake, Chloe whispered. I was stupid, and I'm sorry. Sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? Michael asked, picking up his coffee. Either way, it's too late. You chose your side. Live with it. He left her standing there, tears streaming down her face. Outside, he took a deep breath of the cool morning air. Phase 2 was complete. Time for the final blow. Michael's attorney, Dylan Matthews, reviewed the divorce papers with professional detachment. This is quite thorough, he said, flipping through the documentation of Ava's affairs. The photos, The bank statements showing purchases for her lovers, the witness statements. You've been busy. I believe in being prepared, Michael replied, straightening his tie. What are our chances? With this evidence? Dylan smiled. She won't know what hit her. But Michael, are you sure you want to go this hard? There's no coming back from this kind of divorce. That's exactly what I want, Michael said firmly. Complete severance. The initial hearing was set for a Wednesday morning. Michael arrived early, dressed in his best suit, every document organized in his briefcase. He waited in the courthouse hallway, watching as Ava arrived with her lawyer, not the high-powered attorney she'd wanted, but the best she could afford now. Michael, she called out, hurrying toward him. Her designer outfit looked slightly worn now, her jewelry notably absent. We need to talk. Before this goes any further, everything goes through the lawyers. Everything goes through the lawyers now, Ava, Michael replied, not looking at her. Please, she lowered her voice. I know you're angry, but think about Chloe. Think about our life together. We can work this out. Michael finally turned to face her. Our life together was a lie. You made sure of that. Mr. Benson, the bailiff called. We're ready for you. Inside the courtroom, Michael listened with satisfaction as Dylan laid out their case. The evidence. Speculation. Actually, Michael spoke up, pulling a fresh document from his briefcase. We have proof of that too. The papers detailed Ava's attempts to open offshore accounts to squirrel away money for herself, each one carefully documented and time-stamped. The judge's expression hardened as she reviewed the evidence. Mrs. Benson, this is very serious. Ava burst into tears, but Michael noticed how she kept glancing at the judge, gauging the effect of her performance. Some habits died hard. In light of this evidence, the judge continued, I'm granting an emergency injunction freezing all remaining joint assets pending final dissolution. Mr. Benson's petition for temporary exclusive control of the marital finances is granted. Outside the courtroom, Ava grabbed Michael's arm. You can't do this to me, she hissed. I'll tell everyone everything about you, every dirty secret. Go ahead, Michael replied, gently removing her hand. My secrets don't include sleeping with personal trainers in front of our daughter. Speaking of Chloe, you might want to check on her. Last I heard, she was packing her things. What? Ava demanded. Why would she? Because I offered her a choice, Michael said. She can come back home, agree to go to college, and start fresh, or she can stay with you in whatever rundown apartment you can afford now. Looks like she's finally learning about consequences. He walked away, leaving Ava standing in the courthouse hallway, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. His phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. Dad, can we talk? For real this time? Michael smiled grimly as he got into his car. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. He typed back a single word. Soon. The autumn wind whipped around the street corners as Michael pulled up to his old house. Through the windshield, he watched Ava and Chloe loading boxes into a beaten-up Honda Civic, a far cry from the luxury SUV they'd once driven. The moving truck he'd hired would arrive in an hour to collect his own belongings. Ava spotted him first, dropping a box on the driveway. Makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes or the strain of the past few weeks. She straightened her posture, trying to maintain some dignity in her faded designer clothes. Come to gloat, she called out as Michael stepped from his car. Just making sure you're actually leaving, he replied, checking his watch. The new owners take possession tomorrow. Chloe emerged from the garage, carrying a lamp. Dad, I thought you weren't coming until later. Change of plans. Michael surveyed the pathetic collection of belongings they'd managed to keep. Where are you headed? Rivergate Apartments, Chloe mumbled, not meeting his eyes. Michael knew the place, a rundown complex on the edge of town, the kind of place Ava had always mocked when they drove past. Quite a change from Crestview Lane. You don't have to be cruel, Ava snapped, but her voice wavered. We're leaving, just like you wanted. Like I wanted. Michael's laugh was harsh. I wanted a faithful wife and a respectful daughter. Instead, I got two manipulative cheaters who turned my home into their personal playground. Mom. Chloe turned to Ava, her voice cracking. Maybe we should tell him. Tell me what? Michael stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. Ava shot Chloe a warning look, but the girl continued. About why we really did it. About how lonely we were. How? Save it. Michael cut her off. I'm not interested in your excuses. You made your choices. Now you're facing the consequences. You're right. Ava suddenly burst out, her composure cracking. Is that what you want to hear? You're right. We screwed up. We destroyed everything. But you're destroying us right back, aren't you? Making us suffer like this. No, Ava. Michael's voice was ice. You destroyed yourselves. I'm just making sure you can't drag anyone else down with you. A car horn blared from the street. Logan sat behind the wheel of a rusty pickup truck, looking uncomfortable. Chloe, you ready? He called out. Michael's eyebrows rose. Still hanging around, is he? He's helping us move. Chloe defended, but her cheeks flushed. He feels bad about what happened. Does he? Michael stepped between Chloe and the truck. Tell me, Logan, do you feel bad about sleeping with a married woman's daughter in their family home, or do you just feel bad you got caught? Logan shifted in his seat, unable to meet Michael's gaze. Look, man, get off my property. Michael's voice left no room for argument. If I see you near my daughter again, you'll be explaining yourself to the police. Logan drove away without another word, leaving Chloe standing there with tears streaming down her face. Why do you have to be so mean? She sobbed. Mean? Michael turned to face her. I'm being practical. You think he cares about you? He was part of your mother's sick game, nothing more. That's not true. Chloe protested, but doubt clouded her features. Isn't it? Michael pressed. Ask your mother. Ask her how long she and Owen were planning to include you in their little arrangements. Ask her what other men they had lined up. Chloe's face went pale. She turned to Ava, who wouldn't meet her eyes. Mom, what's he talking about? He's lying. Ava said quickly, too quickly. He's just trying to turn you against me. Show her your phone, Ava, Michael suggested coldly. Show her the texts between you and Owen about expanding the circle. Show her the plans you made. Chloe's hands trembled as she grabbed her mother's purse, fishing out her phone. Ava lunged for it, but Chloe was faster, backing away as she scrolled through the messages. Oh my God, Chloe whispered, her face draining of color. Oh my God, Mom, how could you? Chloe, baby, it's not what you think. Ava shouted back, her voice shrill. You needed to learn how to use what you have, how to get ahead in life, just like I did. Michael watched the scene unfold, his expression hard. And there it is. The truth you've been hiding from yourself, Chloe. Your mother wasn't protecting you. She was grooming you. 2 days later, Michael sat in Dylan Matthews' office, reviewing the final divorce settlement. Dylan spread the papers across his desk, pointing out key sections. The offshore accounts were the key, he explained. Once we proved she was hiding assets, the judge had no patience for her claims of unfair treatment. Everything goes to you. The house, the investments, even her trust fund. And Chloe? Michael asked, though he already knew the answer. Full custody, though she's 18 now, so it's largely symbolic. Dylan shuffled some papers. But there's something else you should see. He pulled out a thick folder, spreading its contents across the desk. Bank statements, credit card receipts, hotel reservations, all in Ava's name, spanning the last 5 years. We found these while tracking the offshore accounts, Dylan said. Your wife wasn't just having affairs with Owen and Logan. There were others, many others. And she was using your money to fund all of it. Michael leaned forward, examining the evidence. Each paper told a story of betrayal. Expensive hotels, jewelry purchases, secret vacations, And names. So many names. Some of these men were your business associates, Dylan pointed out carefully. She was strategic in her choices. Michael's jaw tightened as he recognized familiar names. Clients, partners, competitors. She was sleeping her way through my entire industry. And taking notes, Dylan added, sliding over a small notebook. She kept records of everything they told her. Company secrets, business plans, personal weaknesses. She was building a blackmail arsenal. Michael flipped through the notebook, his anger turning to cold fury. She wasn't just cheating. She was gathering intelligence. Exactly, Dylan nodded. And here's the worst part. She was setting up similar arrangements for Chloe, grooming her to continue the pattern. The evidence was clear. Emails to business associates introducing Chloe, arrangements for private meetings, promises of discretion. Ava had been preparing to turn their daughter into a copy of herself. I want her destroyed, Michael said quietly, completely and utterly destroyed. The judge already saw these documents this morning, Dylan replied, smiling grimly. That's why I called you in. The final ruling comes down in an hour. Would you like to be there? The courtroom was nearly empty when the judge delivered her ruling. Ava sat alone at her table, her lawyer having quit after the new evidence emerged. She looked small and afraid, nothing like the confident manipulator she'd once been. In light of the extensive evidence of financial fraud, emotional abuse, and conspiracy to commit blackmail, the judge began. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Michael Benson. All marital assets are awarded to him, including the contested offshore accounts. Ava began to cry, but the judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, Mrs. Benson's attempts to involve a minor in her criminal enterprises warrant additional action. I am issuing a restraining order preventing her from coming within 500 feet of either Mr. Benson or their daughter. No. Ava jumped to her feet. You can't keep me from my daughter. Sit down, Mrs. Benson, the judge warned. Unless you'd like to discuss the criminal charges these documents could support. She collapsed back into her chair, broken. Michael watched without expression as the judge continued reading the ruling, stripping away everything Ava had spent years building. Outside the courtroom, Ava made one last attempt. Michael, please. She grabbed his sleeve. I'll tell you everything. Every man. Every deal. Every secret. Just don't leave me with nothing. Michael slowly removed her hand from his arm. Goodbye, Ava. Don't contact me or Chloe again. You can't do this. She screamed after him. I made you. I gave you everything. No. Michael turned back one last time. You just showed me who you really are. And now everyone else knows too. 3 months later, Michael stood in his new office, watching the city lights below. His company had weathered the storm of Ava's revelations. His immediate disclosure of her schemes had actually earned him respect from the board. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Chloe stood there, looking different than she had months ago. Gone were the revealing clothes and heavy makeup. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, her face clean and young. Dad. She stepped inside. I got my acceptance letter. Haven University said yes. Michael nodded, remembering their deal. After the final hearing, he'd offered Chloe a choice. Go to college, live by his rules, and rebuild their relationship, or follow her mother into exile. And your mother? He asked, though he already knew the answer. I haven't spoken to her since the hearing, Chloe admitted. She keeps trying to contact me, but after what she planned, she shuddered. I can't believe I almost let her turn me into. But you didn't, Michael interrupted. You made a different choice. Thanks to you, Chloe said quietly, even though I didn't deserve another chance. No, Michael agreed, his voice firm. You didn't, but you're earning it now. He turned back to the window, sensing Chloe wanted to say more. She fidgeted with her acceptance letter. Dad, do you think you'll ever forgive her? Michael watched his reflection in the glass, remembering the notebook full of betrayals, the carefully laid plans to corrupt their daughter, the years of lies. No, he said simply. Some things can't be forgiven. Chloe nodded, understanding finally settling into her young face. I get that now. I really do. They stood together in silence, watching the city lights flicker like stars. Michael had lost a wife but saved a daughter. More importantly, he'd shown them both that actions have consequences, that betrayal carries a price. It was enough.